Do you believe that God wants you healthy? Then join me, Sersie Blue and Gigi Carter, on the Healthy for My Purpose podcast, where we help you realize the relationship between your health and your purpose. We share how eating like Daniel can revolutionize your life. Through discussions and interviews, we challenge you to discover the powerful connection between plant-based nutrition, your body, and your faith. It's time. Welcome to another episode of Healthy for My Purpose. We are so excited. We have Genesha Rounds that we are going to be talking with today, having a wonderful conversation. I actually met her last year. Or was it earlier this year? Last year. So I'm already in 2020. 25 already. We met last year at a Veg Fest, and I heard her speak about raising a family on plant-based nutrition and her own personal story. And I was really moved by it. And so we asked her to come on this podcast. So we are absolutely excited to have this conversation with her. So without further ado, let's jump in. Genesha, just let's start this right from the beginning. Just tell us a little bit about your personal story, your health, how you even intersected with plant-based nutrition.
Well, about 10 years ago, you know what? Let me start at the very beginning when I was a child, before the troubles hit. When I was a child, I had the privilege of meeting my great-great-grandmother, and she had a garden, and she loved taking care of that garden. I was a little girl, didn't really learn much about it. I was probably about 8 or 9. And then I moved with her around, actually I was about 7 when I first found out about it. I moved with her when I was 9. And so from there, I learned about eating fruits and vegetables. And she would give me a different vegetable every day. And many of the vegetables I hadn't tried, many of the fruits I hadn't tried. Because, you know, when you're in school at that time, all they would give you was apple, oranges, bananas. And so we were very limited. We didn't have a lot of money in my home with my mom. So we really just ate the very basic items. But when I would go with my grandmother, she would share all these different things that I hadn't eaten before, like peaches and plums and pears. And she would pick greens from the garden. And she was a phenomenal cook. Okay. And so that's the beginning of me learning about plant-based foods. However, I grew up and I shied away from that part of it. You know, all the processed foods that we eat, I loved many of those. I was still very healthy and health conscious, but I just really liked, you know, some of those fun things that we eat in our teens and in our 20 years. And little did I know it was breaking my body down. And so by the time I was in my 30s, little over 10 years ago, I was diagnosed with ulcerative colitis. During that time, I had never heard of the autoimmune illness. I didn't know what it was. I just knew I was having these awful symptoms, and I went to the doctor. And at first I was scared to go. I didn't go for probably 2 months, thinking, okay, these symptoms I'm having, they're just going to go away. I tried to ignore it like a lot of us do, especially as Black people. We're scared to go to the doctor. And when I finally went, I thought the worst. I thought I had cancer. I thought I was going to die. And he tells me, I had to get a colonoscopy. And he says, we're going to put you to sleep and send the camera and see what's going on. And when I woke up, I'll never forget it. He's at the side of my bed and he has this big bottle of pills. I mean, it was big. And he says, you're going to have to take one of these and you'll be fine. And I said, okay. Now, mind you, I'm in my early 30s. I'm a little naive and thinking, okay, this is going to fix it. Okay. So I left and kept eating the same way. I didn't change anything. And I took the pills and things got better. And so then I stopped taking the pills because I had never really been one to want to take pills. Even though I ate, all the processed food and the soul food that we were accustomed to eating, I still always would eat fruits and vegetables. So it was always a part of my life. I just didn't eat it all the time and, only. So a few years go by. the symptoms come back again and they're even worse. And I'm like, okay, I go back to the doctor, and now I go to a different doctor and they tell me, well, didn't they tell you you're going to have this for the rest of your life? There's no cure. And I say, what? And he said, well, why did you stop taking the pills? And I said, well, because I got better. And he said, well, you have to take the pills for the rest of your life. And I remember sitting there feeling defeated, but also confused and angry too, because I'm thinking, wait a minute, who are these people to tell me that this is never going to go away? And I instantly thought, well, they have to have it wrong. The body, I wasn't born with this, and all these things are going through my mind. And I was bawling, and I just said to them, "You're not God. You can't tell me." And I remember kind of being like a little kid, like, like you can't tell me that. And they got really upset with me because I probably to them was the worst patient ever. I didn't listen to much of anything they told me. I always had a curiosity for health. When I was younger, I thought I was going to end up being a doctor. I often joke and say, God allowed me to get sick just so I can do what he really put me here to do, which was help people heal, and help people learn about how what we eat really does affect us. Because I just fought them tooth and nail, and I was on so many different medications in the beginning. At one point, I even had to inject myself. And that's when I said, with the needle, that's when I said, enough is enough. I have to do some research. I found so much research on people healing themselves with plant-based diets. I found so much research on people reversing so many different illnesses and autoimmune diseases with plant-based diet. And I just went into it cold turkey and just started from what I already knew from what my grandmother had showed me, eating fruits and vegetables. And I got the gift of cooking from her and my family. And I just took all the things that I really liked and started recreating them plant-based.
Wow, that's a remarkable story. I love how it stems back all the way to when you were a child and that exposure you had with your grandmother and her garden. It does feel like there's, like a divine purpose being formed at that early age, and then going through the seasons that you went to get to where you are today. Walk us through specifically when you made that choice. You were listening or watching or reading about plant-based nutrition. Like, walk us through, like, what was your life like? Like, how did you do it? Did you have kids at the time? Did you have a partner? Like, how did you go from that revelation that I'm going to make this change to actually putting it into practice?
I get very emotional when I talk about this, so you all have to excuse me. It's so much to unravel. I had my now 17-year-old. She was 7 or 8 at the time, and it was just me and her. At the time, I was still with her father, but we were on our way at an end, so I didn't have any support in the beginning. In fact, I lost friends and so-called family because everybody thought I was crazy. And I realize now that they were really, I was putting a mirror to them for them to make lifestyle changes. And they were basically persecuting me for taking the action. And even though they knew I was sick, they didn't really care why I was changing. Because when I first started again, I went cold turkey. So I stopped. Well, at first I didn't stop drinking. That took some time because at first I was still drinking alcohol, and especially wine. That took some time for me to quit. But the dietary changes were really hard on my 8-year-old because she was so used to eating a certain way as well. And then I'm sending her to school with walnut nachos, and they look amazing and they're delicious, but she's confused because people are asking her, well, what is that? Where's the meat? I remember she comes home and tells me that the cafeteria staff came and were all in her plate trying to figure out what, because it looked so good. And she said, I was just so nervous because they were all staring at my food and every time I go to school. And so she struggled with it. And I struggled with it as well because, I'm losing friends who I realized later that needed to be gone anyway. And I was grateful for that, and family as well. And it took a while for me to find, people that were really for me. But as far as like even the transition in the home, because at one point I was cooking everything, making everything from scratch, even my sauces, dressings, everything, and that's why everybody thought I was crazy, because everything had to be all natural. And that's what I've come to be known for. I take things and can make pretty much anything all natural without having to use, any chemicals or store-bought sauces or whatever you call it. But it was really hard in the beginning to make that change because there wasn't support at all. But I did it for her. I really didn't care. I just knew that I wanted to be around to raise her, and that was my why. And I didn't want her to end up sick because in my mind at that time, I thought it was just the meat. I've come to realize it's much more than just the meat. Once I started putting the spiritual part into it, I realized that it's all around us. It's our thoughts. It's the things that we cook on. It's the environment we're in. So I realized that it wasn't just the way I was eating that was making me sick, but it was everything that I was taking into my body.
Wow. A lot of questions. So, one thing I just wanted to talk twofold. One, this resistance that you had in your family and your friends and losing people, talk a little bit more about that, because I think there's this idea too, when people are transitioning, that sometimes you may end up going back home and everyone's not as excited about the changes that you're making. And I love the way that you stated it, that you were almost a mirror to them, that they were not ready and they persecuted you for it. I want to just lean into that a little bit, because that was a profound statement. And sometimes you don't realize it as that. And I love the fact that you also said that some of the people that you lost, you needed to lose. Because again, some of the foods that we have to rid ourselves to get healthy, sometimes we have to rid ourselves of people to get healthy. And I just love that comparison. So, tell us, just dig a little deeper for someone who's listening and maybe, their husband or their children, they're not conforming to eating this way. How did you manage to kind of evolve from that and rise from that? How did you help your daughter transition? How did you cope with the fact that you had to be this trailblazer in your family around health? Just give us a few pointers of how you managed that for someone that's listening.
Well, back then, I didn't manage it well. Honestly, it was very hurtful. As I still think on some of the times and situations that I had. I remember a time where I went over to a family member's house, a friend's house, me and my daughter, for dinner. And she invites us over and she has a dinner full of meat. And she knows that, I was ill at the time and I was healing from that. And and it's nothing there. She even had meat in the cabbage. And in my head, I'm thinking, you could have not put meat in there. I could have helped you, coached you on seasoning it. But she didn't care. And we fell out over that. Because then she tells me, well, your daughter can still eat it. I said, no, she can't. We don't eat that. And she says, she can eat whatever she wants. And I said, well, she's only 8. She can't make decisions for herself yet. And I think back on how infuriated I was because our children don't know any different than what we teach them. And I was so angry I couldn't even speak because I drove all the way over here and thinking I'm going to be able to eat. And we get into an argument. And so it was so many situations like that where I would go to someone's home or an event and there was nothing for us to eat. And so I ended up having to pack things everywhere we went. And I still do that to this day. Where sometimes now there's 3 of us. So sometimes I'll have 2 or 3 of those little lunch totes full of snacks or things for us to eat. Or when we go somewhere, people are looking at you sideways because they're taking offense that you don't want to eat their food, but they don't care that you're saying, hey, I healed from something that I don't want to revisit again. I don't want to be sick. It's almost like when you have a cold and you say, well, I'm not going to go around you because I don't want to get sick. Well, it's not you it's the food you have. So the people not wanting to make the changes it started to anger me, and it made me not want to be around them just as much as they didn't want to be around me, because they didn't care that I wasn't well. And that's the part that hurts so much. Then I'm seeing that they're not well. They're dealing with so many different issues within themselves. And in the process of me going plant-based, I lost over 100 pounds. I think I lost a total of 120 or 30 pounds. Yeah, so people saw that transition as well. And I've kept it off for over 6 years now. And so they saw me losing weight. They saw me getting better. I mean, if you look up the symptoms for ulcerative colitis, you can know sometimes if you're around a person and they've shared that with you, they're frequently running to the bathroom. And now you see that I'm better, and I'm telling you, I don't have to deal with that because I'm eating this way, but you want me to eat that way and keep myself sick just because you don't want to make some change. So it was hard in the beginning. And the only way I was able to cope was to say, it's best we separate. It's best that I lead by saying, it's okay that we can't be friends. It's okay that we can't be family. And then you want to separate me from my children and say, you can still give them that. I don't want to fight you, because back then I wanted to fight them. Now I just want to pray for them because I'm like, oh, they just don't know any better. But I was so angry back then. I can tell you, I'm not who I was back then, because they would always try to give my children stuff. My then teenage daughter. Now I have the 5-year-old, and it happened when she was younger too. They would try to still give her stuff, and I'm like, wait a minute. So it was really hard to cope with. Now it's not so hard because people know, but I still meet the same resistance. But now they don't really test me because they're like, okay, we know she's been doing this for a while. We've seen the results, and they come to me with questions a lot of times to help them with their situations.
Yeah, that's amazing. When I think about what you shared with your friend and you having a falling out with her about the food, it really wasn't about the food though. It was about her acknowledging you having a physical illness and this being the remedy for it, and her supporting you through that illness. And I do think that sometimes with some people, there's a control element. They want to control you and what you eat. And there's also, I think, an element of guilt, where they know they need to be doing that, but they're resisting. So they're deflecting that resistance onto you or to whomever. And that was pretty heavy stuff, right? I mean, what you shared. And so my question is, did you have any examples, or do you have any examples, and maybe you do more recently, where, you shared that this is what you're doing and why you're doing it, and the person actually made the change or made the adjustment to be supportive of you in the process? So did you have any family or friends that did support you in any way? I know you mentioned you didn't have a lot of support at the beginning, but at any point in your journey, did you get some support from other people?
No, I still have not.
Wow.
And I will share that, unfortunately, but fortunately, she and I are not friends. However, unfortunately, she ended up getting the same illness several years later. And she did come to me for advice and support, but she didn't end up, before we stopped being friends, she didn't end up changing her lifestyle. And so I still pray for her. I don't know what happened with her, but I know she ended up with the same autoimmune immune illness.
Mm.
Yeah. And so I still don't have any support. Um, I don't have any family support or, when it comes to it, the way I look at it is, um, so for example, if we go out to a family gathering, there's no plant-based food
Hmm.
unless I bring it.
Hmm. Yeah.
So for me, that's not support. Especially when I've been over 10 years strong in this. And so most people, when they meet me, this is what I am. So
Hmm.
even family who may not be closely acquainted with me, but as far as friends, that has been my family support. I do have a few friends I'll say a couple friends that have been very supportive of me. One in particular, I won't say her name, but she was someone I worked with, and I coached her and her family, and we've become very, very close. And she has implemented many of the things I've shared with her and her family, and they've made a lot of progress in their family. And I'm very grateful for her support.
Yeah, awesome. So let's get into your journey. So tell us about. You said you lost over 100 pounds, which
Hmm.
is congratulations. That's absolutely amazing.
Thank you.
Um, Tell us, how long did that take? And you just kind of immersed yourself into the plant-based diet. What did that look like? And how long did it take you to lose the weight? And how were you feeling? And what were the other symptoms? Just walk us through how you were healing yourself and how that evolved.
Well, it took about I got pregnant with Aduni in 2018, or I think the ending of 2018. And so I was already losing weight. And I was kind of going, up and down. I didn't realize at the time, perimenopause was coming in. And so I was dealing with the weight fluctuations. But I was losing weight for about a year at that time. And then I got pregnant with her, and actually about 2 years. It took about 2 years in the beginning because I was going slow. And I will add, I wasn't doing a lot of exercise, and I was active. I would walk, I would go to the gym every now and then. I do a little yoga, but I wasn't really consistent. It was all diet. And I always share that with people because yes, we need to exercise. Yes, we need to keep our bodies active and move. It's important. But I always share with people, once we figure out what we can eat and how we need to eat it, we will lose the weight naturally. And I know that because that's what happened with me. It just started to fall off. I started because I wanted to heal of ulcerative colitis. I didn't really realize the weight was a problem until I started fasting, and that's when I was really seeing myself, because that's one of the things that I had to do to help heal myself. But I didn't think that I was overweight at first. And so once I started to realize, okay, this is contributing to the illness, that's when I started being more intentional about it. And I started intermittent fasting. And then that was for weight loss. But during that time, um, I got pregnant and the weight came back because I was carrying. So then I breastfed her for about 3.5 years, and that helped the weight fall off. But I was still heavy on a plant-based diet, and I got even more intentional with the diet because now I have a new baby. I'm keeping myself healthy because I'm breastfeeding, and so the weight just kept falling off, and it just, I mean, it went so fast. I was even shocked because, again, I wasn't exercising. I was just eating extremely healthy. And that's when I was really my healthiest, around when I had my second child. And I know it sounds crazy to a lot of people because when you have a child, you're usually, exhausted from the new baby, which I had those that tiredness, but I feel like I felt much better right when I had her, because I was so intentional about being healthy, because I had a new child and I wanted her to stay healthy. I wanted my breast milk supply to stay up. And so I was very anal about everything that I ate. And I was, it was around COVID. So I was making everything from scratch. So yeah, it took about a total of, I would say, about 3 or 4 years total, with the prior to the pregnancy and then after. So she'll be 6 this summer, and I've lost even more weight. So I'm the size I was when I was 2021.
Wow, that's awesome. I love that. Yeah, I'm the size I was at 20 or 21 too. I'm 50. I'm in my 50s now, so it does. Yeah,
Yeah.
I'm the only woman in my family to not have obesity, like through
Wow.
menopause and everything. Yeah, because of the diet, as you talked about. You
Mhm.
mentioned earlier about quitting alcohol. Would you mind sharing a little more about that?
Yeah.
Yeah, I
I'm
was a
glad,
long time drinker too, and then
I'm
I
glad
made
you
I quit too, and it was, yeah. I'd love to hear your experience with that.
Well, it was something that was a problem within my family. So there was alcoholism in my family. So and then there were times in my life where I had some struggles as a child, and that carries into your adulthood. So I was not an alcoholic, but I did drink, and so it was 20s, 30s. We're going out for happy hour, or we're going out to have fun, and we're drinking. And then I became the mom who needed a drink after in the afternoon when she came home to wind down, and the mom who needed a drink to go to sleep at night. And then I became the mom just needed a drink while she was watching her favorite program. Um and I told myself, well, wine is better. Jesus drank wine, but then I realized this ain't the same wine. It's not good for me, because I started to notice the cleaner my body got, it didn't feel the same. And I didn't like how I felt. Even after one glass, I felt so bad. And so I stopped first because I was breastfeeding, but then I would occasionally have wine. I stopped. When I say I stopped drinking like alcohol, hard liquor, and then I would just drink wine. But then when I stopped breastfeeding, I didn't feel the same. It felt so weird to me. And then I had the opportunity to drink some natural grape wine that was made fermented from someone that I knew. We had went to a coworker of mine had invited us to someone's birthday party, and they had homemade wine that they had made, and it actually looked like wine. And I say that because I know some people make wines, and it's totally different when it's actually made with grapes and no yeast or anything added. It's just the wine that's fermented. And I didn't feel any, it felt totally different. And I was like, wow, okay, so this is real wine versus the stuff that we see in the shelves. And then I was able to visit a vineyard as well. And it was the same. And I said, well, I don't have access to this. What I'm putting in my body is not, it's almost the same as me getting some of these sauces and all this stuff with chemicals in it. And this is why I'm feeling so crappy. So I said, it's just not worth it at this point. And it had been so many years where I had went without it. I said, what am I doing? It makes no sense. So now I don't even have a desire for it really at all. And I'm getting older, and I said, um, if anything, I need to be doing things that are going to help strengthen me and not take away. I also realized that the body keeps score. With something like alcohol, and you're putting it into your body to digest it, and you already have a situation where you can have some inflammation in your gut, because it's like I broke my arm years ago. I have a scar here, and it's a plate on my arm, and every now and then it gives me trouble. And it was 20 some years ago I did this. um I'm not going to go and put all my weight on this side, because I know that it could bother me. But me putting a bunch of alcohol, even if it's just a glass here and there, into my gut that I know can have some issues if I don't take care of it, it doesn't make sense. So I just stopped. I said, you know what, it's not worth it. And then I looked at the alcoholism, and I said, it's not worth it. And I didn't want my girls to see that either growing up. I do my best to lead by example, and I don't want them to think that if they see me doing something that it's okay for them to do.
Yeah, thank you for sharing that.
You're welcome.
So tell us a little bit, because just from hearing your story, tell us how your spirituality interweaved throughout this whole journey that you have and where you are today.
Well, as I stated in the beginning, I sat in that doctor's chair and I said, "You all are not God." I mean, I was bawling, and I was nowhere near where I am with my faith back then. I can't even lie, but I just always have believed in God. And yes, I've strayed. I'm not perfect, but I've always known that God has been with me and has an ability to heal us. In the beginning, I used to always say I healed myself, but now I say God gave me the knowledge to heal myself. Had I not got sick, I wouldn't have learned all I've learned. So I have to give him credit because I didn't know half of what I know about the body now. And I'm grateful for that. I didn't go to school. I don't know everything. I'm learning every day, but I'm grateful that I know some things that people went to school for years for, just because I study and because I really truly love learning about how the body works, the science of it. But I always credit God because that's who I cried out to. That's who I prayed to. That's who, when all the family was leaving me, the only person I had. That's who, when I was losing jobs because I couldn't go into work because I was so sick. Shoot. Uh, it's been a long journey.
Yeah, it's okay.
Uh, I've lost a lot, but I've gained so much. Uh, and so my this is part sad, but it's also gratitude for how God has been with me, because I think on the journey and how long it's been, but I'm better for it. My faith has gotten strengthened because, as I said, the body keeps score. Whenever I drift away from the health conscious part, if I get too stressed, if I get too worried, if I don't really truly depend on him, if I start to allow my children to kind of influence me and say, "Mommy, we want this or we want that," because children see things at school and my body can't take that. Okay. And I say, well, if it's not good for me, it can't possibly be good for them, because all our bodies are created the same way. And God designed them all. So I say, well, whenever I have a situation where it's called a flare up, because you can get into flare ups with ulcerative colitis if you don't consistently stay on the healthy track. And that has happened with me. And a lot of people deal with that and they say, well, if you're dealing with that, then are you truly healed? Yes, you're healed. You have to take accountability that you're not doing what you were always doing. And I always tell people, you have to acknowledge that we didn't create these bodies. God did. So that's why my faith has been strengthened, because every time I go back to what he initially taught me from that garden at my grandmother's house, the healing comes back. And so I can't not get emotional, because even then he was all I had. You got to excuse me.
Thank you for sharing and being so vulnerable, Janisha. I love that you say that. are you still healed? But the real issue is, am I still doing the same things that got me healed? And
Exactly.
sometimes on our health journey, we can get into this situation, we are doing all of the right things, and then we can get comfortable, or sometimes we can get distracted, or sometimes the enemy throws in those old things that pull us away off the track, and we start to compromise, and we start to do the things that we weren't doing in the original plan. And so things
Yes.
start to come back up, or maybe you might start emotionally eating again because you're going through a difficult time. But I love the way you say, when I go back to what I know I need to do, everything comes into an alignment. And so it's not a testament to the flare up, it's a testament to the fact that this works when you work it, right? And
Exactly.
so that is what I want to highlight. I think a lot of times people are like, oh, what about the flare up? Well, yeah, the flare up can happen when I get off track. But once I get back in my element and in my zone, it's proving that we have to do what got us there, and we got to stay there. And I
Stay
think
there.
that's the challenge of this long-term healthy lifestyle. Are we convinced that we can stay in that lane? And that's where the enemy wants to get us off. He wants to say, you don't have, it doesn't take all that, what you did in the beginning. It doesn't take all that. It doesn't take you eating clean. It doesn't take you not going out and eating junk food and all these things. And he tries to make us think that, but it does take all that, because
It does.
that's how you got healed. And so I just wanted to validate you in this moment,
Thank
that
you.
that when you do the right thing, you are healing yourself by the co-laboring with God. And I just want to validate you. Thank you for being so vulnerable. Gigi, I don't know if you had another question.
No, I just want to just say, how much I appreciate you being so open and vulnerable, because just know that anyone listening to this, it's going to help them more than any of us will realize, because a lot of times people are struggling with, moving into this lifestyle, and they struggle with it because of family, because of friends, because of coworkers, because of whatever. And then they too get pulled away. They'll do the Daniel fast, right? And they'll feel good for the 21 days and they want to continue, but then they go back to, they say life happened or whatever. And you sharing your story, and even with the flare-ups of going back, that is very real. Now for them, it may not be ulcerative colitis, it might be something else. It might be their A1C or their blood pressure or their cholesterol or just chronic inflammation in the body. Whatever it is, the answer, the solution is still the same.
Right.
And so you saying what you just said, you've just helped a whole lot of people.
Yeah. Yeah. And it's the truth. And I said in the beginning about not the exercise part. I have to remind people I was in my early to mid 30s. So our metabolism changes as we age, but our metabolism, I've learned also that our metabolism also changes based on what we eat. So we have to continue to take care of these vessels God has given us. We have to exercise. People always ask me about weight loss, and I always tell people there's no pill. There's no specific diet, even though I know there's a lot of diets that people think. And then when people say a plant-based diet, I say, no, this is a lifestyle. This is something you have to continue to do for the rest of your life. You have to work out. You have to find what works for you. Especially for women, we shy away from lifting weights. We do need to lift weights. As we age, we need to strengthen our bones. I tell people that all the time. So weightlifting strengthens our bones. And with the plant-based diet, you have to be very intentional. There's some bad information out there about us not getting enough nutrients, about us not getting enough protein. We've heard that, but now they're saying that it's a nutrient deficient diet, even though there's a lot of science out there. I watched the podcast you all did a couple of weeks ago about that, but there's still a lot of people, especially on social media, who were former plant-based, and now they're saying they're going back to eating meat because they had all these deficiencies. I will share even more of my story on that real quickly. The only thing I've ever been deficient in was vitamin D. And as we all know, vitamin D, If you're out in the sunlight, you're going to get some, but I recently learned that's only part of it. You can still get it from food, even though they say you can't get it from food. And there is some meat you can get it from. However, if you're intentional, you're eating a well-balanced plant-based diet, not just beans and potatoes and rice and whatever the comfort foods that we eat, you're going to get all your nutrients. I've never been low in B12 or anything else, calcium or anything, and I always share this. So I had one deficiency, and that was part of what I later learned, that something that kind of goes in with the autoimmune illness. So I always tell people your individualized situation does matter, but a plant-based diet, there is scientific proof that it is the most nutrient dense way you can eat. If you're eating a variety of fruits and vegetables, the rainbow, eat the rainbow. But I see it all the time on social media, people who are saying they're not plant-based anymore because they were getting sick and this and that. And I'm saying, no, you were eating the same thing. You're not incorporating all the different variety of fruits and vegetables that God has given us. And then some people say, well, I don't like this, I don't like that. And you're not giving it a chance. I remember you saying about the palate changing. That's true. It does change. I didn't like a lot of the stuff I like now, but I kept giving it a chance. And I tell people, change your mindset. If you tell yourself you're not going to like it, you're not going to like it. But if you say, I don't like this right now, let me try another way of making it. As you keep eating it, your palate will change. But if you keep the mindset, this is for my health, not for me to have some temporary satisfaction. This is for me to nourish my body. If you're dealing with any diabetes, ulcerative colitis, Crohn's, or, all this stuff that we deal with, lupus, whatever, and you say, well, I'm eating for my health to nourish me. That's what made me want to start eating avocados every day. I couldn't slice up avocado without putting stuff in it to making it take, I didn't start there.
Thank you for that, because it's in the diversity. Thank you for sharing that. So we're going to just pivot a little bit, because I did taste you were giving out some free cookies, and I had one of your whole food plant-based cookies, and this ended up becoming a business for you. Tell us a little bit about your business, and how that evolved, and how people can even get a hold of you around that.
Okay, yeah, you tried my gluten-free chocolate chip cookie. So after I realized that, hey, I really like doing this and I can share this with people, I was always giving my food away to my friends and family to get them to eat healthier. I said, I can do this. And shortly after I had my now 5-year-old child, we started the business, and I started sharing the same things that I would cook for myself. Some of the things I would bring them to pop-ups. And so what I focus on is making all natural, plant-based, healthy as possible, local if I can get it, but definitely organic, so that it doesn't do any harm to the body. So everything I make is with intent. So, even in the cookie, I use flax seeds to bind it instead of egg replacer. I do my best to put as much nutrients as I can into whatever I'm making, because I want it to nourish the body. So that's what is my niche. It kind of sets me apart, because even though I may have a comfort food, I still try my best to make it as healthy as possible, but also flavorful. And so my business, you can find me on my social medias, Facebook, Blissful Soul Kitchen, or same as Instagram, blissful_soul_kitchen. And so what I really like to focus on is education. A lot of people love to eat my food, but you're not going to get it without a little bit of education on why it's healthy for you, and why I made it the way I made it.
I love that so much. And you're located in Kansas City, is that correct?
City, yep. Kansas City, Missouri.
Cool.
And do you do delivery as well, like mail, or is it just localized for right now?
Yes, I actually do ship. I ship, and so I have that option of shipping some items, and then we have local delivery also, and I also do coaching classes, one-on-one consults as well, because I'm a certified integrative health coach. So I can work with people as well on certain issues that they may have with their health and help them to adopt healthier lifestyles.
Awesome. Thank you so much. It was a pleasure talking to you, Genesha, and your story is so powerful. And I hope you share it more. I hope this is just the beginning of a lifelong journey of you just sharing your story, because I really believe that the challenges that you have been through is to help someone else. And I believe that really from the bottom of my heart. So thank you so much for coming
Yeah.
on. We will attach all of your social medias. So if anyone wants to check out what Genesha has going on, we will put that in the show notes. Did you have any final words that you wanted to leave with the audience?
I just want to tell you all to be encouraged. Don't give up. Put yourself first. When it comes to situations where sometimes people don't support you, lean on God. He will see you through it. You may feel like you're all alone, but you're not. God has you, because He definitely has kept me, and He will keep you too.
Thank you for joining us on the Healthy for My Purpose podcast. We hope you enjoyed the community and are walking away empowered and encouraged to live your healthiest life for your God-ordained purpose. You can connect with us on Facebook and Instagram to enjoy fellowship with like-minded women. Please don't forget to subscribe, rate, and review this on iTunes. Until we meet again, keep honoring your body for your purpose. Want to lose weight? Comment yes, and we'll send you our free masterclass.